Hello, everyone. This is Jacob Popio, the producer of The Apex. This week's podcast is sponsored by Samantha's Restaurant on North Market across the street from Walsh University. Jan and RJ both sit down with Ryan Coblentz. They discuss his journey from being the kid that got beat up every day after school, getting off the bus, to the man that took home the multiple first place trophy at NPC Think Pink Bodybuilding competition in West Virginia. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex. Also, please visit Samantha's Restaurant on North Market Street across the street from Walsh University. Enjoy a nice fat stack of pancakes.
Hello, Apex Chasers. This is another episode of the Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Jan Almasy. As always, across the table for me is Mr. RJ Holiday.
What's up, everybody? Glad to be here again. Hope everybody's having a great day.
And a great week. So as you heard in the beginning from our wonderful producer, Mr. Jacob Popio, this episode was sponsored by Samantha's Restaurant on North Market across the street from Walsh University here in Canton, Ohio. We were all three of us, me, RJ, and our guest, were able to get some wonderful pancakes there this morning that I so love and have talked about on multiple episodes here on the Apex Podcast. So we were able to go get breakfast. Me and our guest went and hit a good lift before we came in. So I'm feeling good. I'm full of carbs, and I'm a happy, happy individual right now.
How can you not be? Podcast and pancakes, brother.
Yeah, that's what life is all about, man. Like
See,
eating.
we were going to do the episode while eating, but our mics are so good, it would have just...
You'd have tink, tink,
it would
tink.
have just been plates and chewing the whole time.
Right. Well, and I don't like, as much as I love talking to people, I'm not talking to people while I'm trying to eat my pancakes. Like, that's very personal time between
syrup everywhere.
Between me and my pancakes. You can't interrupt that. That is a very special relationship. So today we're going to be interviewing a good personal friend of both mine and RJ's. He was RJ's friend first. I'll give him that credit.
Yeah.
I met him through RJ. So his name is Mr. Ryan Coblentz, and he is a bodybuilder, a hashtag dog dad to a little French bulldog, yes, if I'm
Cutie
correct.
patootis.
Yeah, Easy E. Beautiful, beautiful little dog.
He's my
virtually,
godson, right?
He is your
Yeah,
godson.
that's right.
virtually Instagram famous.
Best friend of Theodore.
Yeah.
So
My baby.
Ryan is a bodybuilder, like we said, and he just recently placed first in true novice bodybuilding, second in middleweight bodybuilding, second in true novice classic physique, fourth in novice classic physique, and sixth in Class A physique down in West Virginia at the NPC Think Pink Mid-Atlantic Grand Prix. So with that, Mr. Ryan, welcome to the Apex.
Jan, RJ, thanks for having me. Good to
Of
be
course.
here.
Yeah, the episode's been a long time coming.
Yes, it
Can't
has.
rush perfection, though.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it takes time. So today, Ryan, why don't you just start off by telling people a little bit about, who is Ryan, where are you from, and we'll just kind of start with that.
Well, I grew up in Hartville/Uniontown, Ohio. Actually, two small towns that are right next to each other, same school district, all that stuff. Small town America, horse and buggies on the main street, flea markets. They weren't able to sell alcohol until about 5 years ago, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Beer and wine only, though. No liquor.
Yeah, no,
yet.
it was
Really?
a dry area.
Yeah,
Mays Valley kind of messed that up for everybody.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, it was because like the Millers in Hartville
Yeah, but
Market
the
and
Lake
stuff
kids
like
always
that.
threw really good parties, as I remember, in high school.
they did.
I don't remember. I was
We got to go out of
a couple of years
Out of
younger than you
township.
guys, I guess. Out of township.
township.
This
to
is
buy my
like
liquor.
prohibition, brother. We got to go to the county line. That's funny. So, grew up in Greene or Uniontown?
Well, Hartville
Uniontown,
until I was
Hartville.
about 10, and then moved to Uniontown
Gotcha.
shortly right after that.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Lake High School through freshman year. After freshman year, I was struggling academically, personally, a little bit. Just wasn't very happy there. And I had some friends at a high school up in Akron. It's called Archbishop Hoban High School, Catholic school up in Akron. Again,
Oh, you went to Hoban?
I did go to
What?
Hoban. I'm a good little Catholic school boy.
Oh, my gosh. I
did
know.
my aunt.
When did you graduate from Hoban?
2007.
2007. Do you know any of the Crookstons? Like Julie Crookston, Max Crookston, Barbie Crookston.
I feel like I do. I couldn't.
Really?
If I spoke to them,
I was going
it
to say,
in
because
high
like
school.
Hoban's like yay big. I mean, it's like
I mean, it's grown for the most part. The kids
now it is. Yeah, I mean,
What's cool about
it's
Hoban,
always been
though-
a good sports teams and everything there
I
too.
mean, they was 3 or 4 years in a row we won the state title now.
Right.
Something like that. But what's cool about Hoban, though, I mean, it's super diverse. I mean, you got inner city kids, you got your rich kids from Fairlawn or wherever. I mean, everybody was cool. You want to talk about, like, going from, like I said, small town Hartville to, you know, it's in the middle of the hood. It's in the middle of the hood on the top of a hill in Akron. But, I mean, every kind of kid imaginable is there. I mean, everybody was, you know, super awesome. There wasn't real cliquey or anything.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but going there, man, as far as personal growth and development, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I went to Canton South High School, so you could, like, virtually hear banjos in the distance. We weren't quite Sandy Valley, but there was definitely a lot of underbelly Hicktown culture at Canton South. You went to Jackson, right?
Dude,
So
just Ferraris.
yeah, for those of you that Jackson is known as like the rich high school in our area, so all the
of
spoiled
like a
kids.
handful of kids
the plastics.
until, you know,
Right, exactly.
the one girl curbs her dad's Lamborghini. I'll never forget that. And then the tow truck company had never towed a Lamborghini before. So they couldn't get underneath it and they wouldn't go get a bed. So they tried to hook it up to tow it and they put it on the bumper and started to drive away. I remember sitting in study hall watching because I grew up around cars. My dad works at Summit and whatnot. And I was like, they're not doing that right. And I go, for a car that's that low to the ground, I was like, you basically need a bed. The guy who just threw the hook on there on the bumper, started driving away, ripped the whole front of the car off. You should have. The girl like literally dropped to her knees out in the park. I felt so bad, but was hysterically laughing at the same time.
I would feel horrible.
She hit
too.
a little like 4-inch puddle and tried to gas it, turning into the school just curb with her dad's Lambo.
Oh snap! I like backed into my aunt's like Ford Taurus one time.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's
Same thing.
virtually the same thing. I think I hit it with a Chrysler minivan.
So we all are from this area, but you know,
Very
three
different
aspects of
areas,
it.
which is cool. Yeah, totally different places. So why don't you? Then obviously our end goal here is going to be getting to that think pink. You know what I mean? That's kind of like our accumulation of what the episode is. But in order to get there, I'm sure there's a lot of lessons and stories you had to learn along the way that got you to West Virginia and competing on that stage.
Did you play sports in high school?
I started football in second grade. I started playing football.
That's when I started wrestling.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
I
about when I
grade.
started wrestling.
It wasn't for you.
No, it was for me. I loved WWF, and all I cared about was.
You're like, when
that
can I start
football.
hitting people with chairs?
I used to wear Austin 316
I can't
shirts to my match.
I can't
and
RKO people.
Yeah, what do you mean? I can't. There's no ring. There's
I did
no ropes?
actually. I kind of rock bottomed a guy in a match one time. I knocked the wind out of him. He
Oh,
started
my gosh.
crying, and his mom was not happy.
No, yeah.
But I won, so whatever it takes.
Whatever floats the
Yeah,
boat.
who's the real winner here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I started playing football in second grade. Played up through high school. Again, played or wrestled a little bit. I wanted to play basketball in high school, but literally after every season of football, I had to have a knee surgery. So it sucked because I was at Lake High School through freshman year, decided to transfer, so I had to sit out sophomore year because I wasn't able to get released.
Yeah, the rule.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was unfortunate because I, would at least like lettered and whatnot. So, I'm hyped up for junior year. I'm like super excited, trained extra hard and everything. Second game, tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus.
Oh,
so
geez,
the unhappy triad, as it's technically called.
I've never heard that. That sounds terrible.
It wasn't fun.
That is like some Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events kind of phrase. The unhappy triad.
What's that? Oh, I just completely blew my leg out.
Right, essentially. Yeah, that's like you. Oh, I broke my foot. Just kidding. I shattered my hip.
Yeah. Well, close. They're relative, distance from one another.
So, yeah, I had that be full knee reconstruction. That was... Dr. Pakin did that. He's from Talmadge. And Dr. Congeni at Akron Children's was the physician that looked at me. He was also our team doctor. He's one of the best, one of the best human beings you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, that dude would do anything for everybody. His entire family, amazing people. I mean, got me my MRI results back the next day.
That's awesome.
Dude cried with me when I started crying when they told me I was done for the season, just because he knew how much that meant to me. It was leading up to that.
And that was your junior year?
That was junior year.
At the end of junior year?
That was second game of junior year.
Oh, wow. That blows.
So rehabbed all that off season, getting ready for senior year. Senior year comes and I tear my meniscus. But
Same leg?
Same leg.
Oh.
But surgery wasn't an option. I was going to keep going regardless. Right. I mean, it's like a senior year. I've missed a year already. I've been waiting for this for forever. And it meant so much, especially being at Hoban and, wanting to be there for my teammates and everything. I love football, man. It was my life. I thought I was going to, I wanted to go play in college and all that. I mean, everyone's, dream growing up, high school football, college football. I'm 5'7", so the NFL wasn't really going to happen for a 5'7" short white dude. But other than that, senior year, we had a great senior year. We were 7-3, missed the playoffs by like 0.025 points or something ridiculous. So we actually had our final game. We find out we're already eliminated from the playoffs. So we're down. We're not even really like hyped up for the game. So we're playing up at Villa Angeles St. Joe's, and we're warming up, and all of a sudden, we're like at midfield, and their entire team starts coming over to midfield, and we get into a brawl. Like, we get into a straight brawl before the game even started. And
like,
again,
like
we were all
Spartans versus Greeks.
Like, we don't even have to be here.
Right.
Yeah,
This isn't going to change anything.
So it was, we were like super down. Then that happened, and then we were like, all right, that switch flipped a little bit, and we won 62-0, I think, something like that.
Really
Solid.
drove it home.
Right.
I also tore my meniscus completely at the end of that game. Also. So there was another knee surgery after that. And then I was supposed to be rehabbing. I tried to do too much too fast because I'm hard-headed. Tear my meniscus.
Yeah, I can't relate
I mean,
to
if
that.
but that's with anything like me. Like, if I'm hurting or something like that, I'll be like, well, maybe I can go in and do a little bit. And then I walk out of there like, I should have just stayed in bed.
Should've. So that was disheartening because I had my third surgery, and I was hoping to play, Division III college football and whatnot. I was super excited. I was going to play with some of my best friends I grew up with. Third knee surgery. Doctor says, the quote was, "Your knee is not stable enough to ever step foot on a football field ever again." Ooh. So I was like, oh, well, since you put it that way. So I was hoping to go play at Baldwin Wallace, and then since I couldn't play football anymore, I chose to go to the University of Akron.
The old alma mater.
Good old alma mater. Good old Go Zips.
Yep.
So I ended up going to Akron. Still loved the train, loved working hard, loved working out. So slowly got.
Were you still training with the purpose of thinking maybe you could go back and play football?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And then reality kind of hit, and I'm like, okay, this isn't going to happen. Let's reevaluate what I can do from here. And then at the end of high school, I had some friends that started competing in bodybuilding. I went to their shows, got a little interested. And then for me, I met Jay Cutler after he won his very first Mr. Olympia in 2006.
Ooh, the big man himself.
Yeah, that was, and he was the first pro athlete who didn't just tower over top of me.
Yeah.
I mean, and then,
up on stage, all those guys look enormous. And then you see them and you're like, oh, you're only 5'8".
Yeah, I mean,
hello.
Growing up,
You're
I
wide
get
as
the
a bus.
magazines.
Yeah.
You get the magazines growing up. I'm assuming these guys are like the NFL players. These guys are 6'4", 6'5". Now realizing these guys are my height, if not shorter. But they weigh as much as the NFL guys do.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah. So I met Jay, and
Where'd you meet him at?
it was at Max Muscle's grand opening. Max Muscle in Akron, Ohio, in the Valley.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, the supplement place.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to go there.
Ironically enough, I started working there about 3 years after. I worked there for about all the way through college.
You did work there for a while because you were working there and at the gym.
Yeah.
At the same, you were double timing.
Double time.
Free gym membership, free supplements, get everything you need, one-stop shop.
Right.
That was awesome. The owner of Max Muscle, his name was Steve Cariotis. He taught me a ton, especially about customer service, how to treat customers, go above and beyond, because we're going against the GNCs and all these top-notch.
Whole franchise.
Not that we weren't top-notch, but, the big,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to break into that because I worked at GNC for
the David
3 years.
versus Goliath
Yeah,
almost.
it's really hard to break into any type of supplement industry because, the big name stores like Vitamin Shop and GNC, they get a massive deal buying huge shipments of 5-pound jugs of protein and pre-workout and, mom and pop supplement stores, vitamin shops usually just, they can get their hands on more obscure stuff, but when it comes to what you see in magazines and whatnot, they're getting raked over the coals, to buy some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Compared to generic chain XYZ supplement shop.
Yeah, so it just came down. You got to be on your customer service. You got to go above and beyond. And I didn't mind doing it because I was young. I was loving learning everything I could.
That's why I worked at GNC because when right out of high school when I started, I was just like, I want to know why not surround myself with this kind of stuff so I can just learn as much as I can.
The day you stop learning, you're either dead or dumb. So don't be either one of those things.
Don't want to be either one of them. Yeah. I like that. I've never heard that before. It's very rare that there's a quote that hasn't crossed my eyes or is like stuck in my brain because they have a whole lot of useless information up there. So that's refreshing.
Same.
The day you stop learning, you're either dead or dumb. I like it.
Thanks.
So what kind of led you? So that's, I mean, anybody can get an interest in something. You know what I mean? Like, there's a big difference between, oh, I'm interested in fitness and bodybuilding, and then I'm going to be a fitness expert and a bodybuilder.
I'm going to do it. I'm
you know what I mean?
do it.
So, like, there's, like, I remember crossing that gap when it was like, oh, I'm interested in potentially fighting to, you know,
Hit me in the face.
Right, to, I'm going to step into a ring and, you know, get punched, you know, against... I'm going to step into a ring with another dude
Who's been training to beat the crap out of me.
Training to fight me. That's, you know, my weight, my height, and you're only ever really one punch away from getting your crap rocked kind of thing. And so there's a big difference between people. I say this all the time. Guys that are at, like, the bar watching UFC fights wearing tap-out shirts from Walmart that have never trained a day in their life. They're like, oh, you should have thrown him in a Kimura.
Give him the omoplata.
Like,
Rear
why?
naked choke him.
Why aren't they heel hooking? Because
He's
that's
on
illegal,
bottom.
Billy.
You know what you're
that's
talking
illegal
about?
in the UFC. You
As
can't
they're
do
drinking
that.
beer and eating French fries.
Right, exactly. Like,
Not that there's
I
anything wrong with
should've done
drinking
this.
beer and French fries, but
Right. Oh, I love beer. And
So what was that? What was that moment? It was me
That
and Jay
it was
transition.
Cutler.
me and Jay. I still have the picture he signed for me for that day, so I have it framed and everything. It said, "To Ryan, train to be your best," and you know that just lit a fire under me. It started just reading, researching as much as I could. I remember I'd get all the Battle for the Olympia DVDs,
nice.
and you know those were cool because it would show all the pro bodybuilders. Each of them was training a different muscle group, you know, in each of their videos. So if I was training back that day, whoever's training back, I'd watch their workout. If I was training chest, you know, so on and so forth. So, and obviously, you know, for years, this was, so I was about 18. You know, started lifting, started eating. You know, the whole mindset was got to get bigger, got to get bigger, got to get bigger. And everyone's like, oh, you know, you're going to compete. I'm like, yeah, I want to. They're like, oh, well, when? I'm like, got to get bigger, got to get bigger. And then
So
somebody
what were you weighing at the time?
at the time, I was probably 195-ish or so. I was a pudgy 195. So I had all my baby fat, all that good stuff. But I had finally had somebody say, you know, you need to just do it. And, you know, you're always going to need to get bigger, and you're always going to want to get bigger. You need to just do it, get your feet wet, and go from there.
Yeah, see what you actually
And I'm
look
just-
like all
right.
died.
Yeah, I'm just like, wow. All of a sudden, it was like an epiphany. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. So,
So when was that first show?
that first show was in May of, I want to say it was it 2010? I was 20 years old. So
It's about 2 years after you had the like realization.
yeah, exactly. Just about 2 years after that. It was the Mr. Canton show, which if you're from around here, that was always
Good
a
old-
fun show to go to. It's a good first show.
The NABA. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good first show because it's all just one prejudging finals. Everything's right then.
Those are more and then my first show was the Rubber City Classic, which was NABA, the same organization. And for anybody, you know, that was 5-6 years ago, whatnot, getting into bodybuilding and whatnot, especially in the Canton area, those were like the two, you know, you never done it before, you know, step up to the plate.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for full disclosure for everybody that's listening to this, I'm going to be speaking on this show because I do know a pretty good amount about dieting and lifting and everything else like that. I have never stepped on a bodybuilding stage. I don't want anybody to ever get that impression.
He does pose a lot, though, just in the mirror.
But like, I don't want just because I am going to be contributing to the conversation, or at least try. I did force myself to go through a regiment that
With
RJ
me.
gave me, and so me and Brian saw me plenty of times at Powerhouse while I was doing that.
4:30, 5 a.m.
4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning after I got off of work doing cardio and stuff. So I did that with the intention of this episode happening so that I could understand a piece of what it felt like to go through those preps and stuff like that. But I just, before anybody gets that impression or anything moving forward, I have never stepped on a bodybuilding stage. My expertise comes from wrestling and then being a super huge nerd, essentially, and wanting to research diet and workouts and all that other kind of stuff.
Work ethic is work ethic, though.
It doesn't matter whatever you apply it to.
Yeah, that's fair. But I just wanted to make sure that nobody got that impression. So
He
what
just
was
beats
it?
people up instead.
Yeah.
Right. So what?
We get on stage and flex in a bikini.
Impression.
Basically,
he breaks
people's
punches'
faces.
So what was it like that mentality switch? What did it feel like going through that first prep?
Did you have someone helping you?
I did. I didn't really know what I was doing. He didn't. He kind of knew what he was doing. He was like a relatively, I don't want to say a basic trainer, but he had competed before and whatnot. But I mean, he taught me a good amount and everything too.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I was my guy I was working out with was actually my roommate at the time. He had trained with him previously.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, hey, I got a guy. He'll help us with our prep. I'm like, oh, cool. So dieted down.
Did you find it to be difficult?
Now, for those people
was.
that aren't familiar with the field, what do you guys like? You guys are saying dieted down. What does that mean for our listeners?
Get to the lowest percentage of body fat as possible without diet.
That he nailed it right on the head. Basically,
I just wanted to make sure that they knew.
Maintain that, like what we had talked about in my episode. The dieting between wrestling and bodybuilding for me was so different and so much better on the bodybuilding aspect because I could still eat. So the purpose when you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show is you need to maintain that muscle mass. So it's not like you can just be like, well, guess I'll only eat, one meal today and whatnot, and then, I'll lose the weight. And because your body's going to go, your body would much rather, eat that muscle off you, nutritiously speaking, than whatever fat you have. So you got to keep your belly full and then on top of that, eat clean and still do cardio and make sure you're burning off those extra calories and basically spare as much muscle as you can while, like Ryan said, getting down to the lowest body fat percentage possible with like the time that you've allotted yourself.
Right.
Yeah, the meals, again, getting the amount of protein in, keeping the weights as heavy as you can. You see a lot of times, people that do that crash diet and they'll lose, they might lose 100 pounds, but they look flabby almost because they were eating nothing, so their body used their muscle as fuel.
Yeah.
So, when you lose your muscle mass, you slow your metabolism down at the same time. So, I mean, obviously you see guys that are, more muscle bound. They tend to sweat a little bit more, maybe even breathe a little bit heavier, depending on how much cardio they're doing.
Why are you looking at me? I didn't do it.
But that's just because they have a higher metabolism because, more muscle mass, faster metabolism, you're going to sweat more at the same time. So
was it difficult for you the first time, or were
Yeah,
you so excited that you're like, I don't care, I'll do what it takes?
Well, luckily I always had the mindset of I'll do what it takes. But at the same time, you never fully know what you're getting into.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like,
every prep for me has been different.
Yeah.
And I think it's been the same way for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Until you actually do it, you think you know what's going on, but then you actually get into it. And I mean, there's a lot of isolation that goes on. There's a lot of soul searching. You got to dig deep and to wake up at, like he said, most of my work shifts are 5 a.m. So I'm setting that 3:30 a.m. alarm. I got to get to the gym. I got to do my cardio before my shift starts. So it's who cares if it's 3:30? It doesn't matter. You can't think about it. You get up, you put your clothes on,
do it.
You get your food, you just go do it. There's no excuses. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Are you willing to do what it takes to accomplish your goal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what are you willing to do what like other people aren't willing to do? That's what like whenever I just got a person that here, I'm gonna read it. So my friend Emily texted me today. She's in nursing school. So I tutor classes and we're all a really tight knit group. Whether nursing students, nurses in general, because it's just a tough major. And so she texted me, she's like, I have no idea how you do what you're doing. Working, doing stuff with the podcast, going to the gym constantly, volunteering to tutor people. When do you ever sleep and what's your secret? And so I responded, I said, prioritize and execute. Don't waste time worrying about things that you can't control and murder everything in your path that you can control. And so
figuratively murder.
Right, yeah. No, I'm not encouraging anybody to kill anybody. So you're murdering tasks, not living things.
Marking them off the list.
Right. And so, but my mindset behind that is just so many people waste emotional energy on needless things. Like they wake up in the morning, and right now, I'll be straight up. I've been working a ton, and my room is a disaster, right? And so after this, I'm going to clean it. But there's a little spot in your brain that's like, you don't have to do that right now.
No one's seeing your room.
But the thing is that, it takes half an hour and then it's clean. But you build it up in your head to where it's it's going to be so bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be horrible. Like in the cardio at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm driving after I get done with a 12-hour shift. And I'm like, this is going to be horrible the entire time I get there. And then you get done with half an hour on the treadmill. And you're like, oh, that really wasn't that bad. But there's a lot of people that just drove home.
It's kind of reminds me of like what Andy Frisell always talks about building momentum. That the times when you don't feel like doing something, don't want to do something, that's the time it's most important to do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
You take that first step, leads to a second, third, and then all of a sudden you're rolling.
Right. I think that something that my buddy, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a Navy SEAL now. Right. And we were training together. When I was training for the Golden Gloves, he was training for Navy SEAL entrance. And what we would do, we would swim at Perry High School every morning, 5 a.m. We'd swim for an hour. Which an hour of swimming, like props to these Olympic swimmers and like competitive swimmers, even in high school and everything else. Like I thought I was going to die a lot of the time when we were in there pushing each other in the pool. But he would always say when we were in there in the morning, he was like, you need to train your mind to get pissed at itself for saying, I don't feel like doing this. So we would be there and we would be like, oh, I don't feel like doing another lap. And he'd be like, all right, cool, let's do 3. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, I don't feel like doing this extra set. Cool, let's do 2 more sets. Because then you condition your brain to where at this point, with everything that I've got going on, it's like, oh, I don't feel like reading this section of a book after I get off of work. Cool, I'm going to read half of the book. You know what I mean? You just start getting to that point where you trick your brain into like getting angry. You're like, really? You're having that thought right now? Stupid. Like, don't do that.
just get it done.
Yeah, quit being a pansy. And then you try to step your game up. And then you kind of get into like that momentum, that rhythm where you're just constantly raising the bar rather than sitting there complaining about where the bar's set to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like for me, I would have a guilty conscience too much. I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror if I woke up and skipped a cardio session, if I missed a meal, if I cheated on my diet. For me, that self-accountability is the biggest thing. I mean, nobody's going to do it for you, no matter if you're trying to start a business, if you're trying to study, you're trying to get ready for a bodybuilding show, you're trying to get ready for a fight. You know, at the end of the day, you're accountable for everything that you put into it. You get out what you put in. And I mean,
that's fair.
Yeah, you got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and know you did everything in your power every single day, you know, measuring your food down to the ounce, you know, doing your cardio down to the second, that you did everything you could in your power to, you know, look your best that day, fight your best that day, take that exam, you know, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and, you know, at the end of the, it comes down to accountability. I mean, no one's going to do it for you. Your life is up to you, and you know whatever you want to accomplish. Again, you got to just kick yourself in the butt and get moving.
Well, I think with what you're saying, that's when people do fail at some of the stuff that they're doing. I think that is why they get so mad. I mean, how can you get mad at yourself? Like, even when I did my last show, it's not where I wanted to place or anything like that, but I thought I had looked the best that I'd looked for any of my shows. Granted, you know, I didn't think I was heavy enough, but that's just time. That just takes time.
It's like we were talking about. You got to get bigger. You got to get bigger.
And like, I think some people get so mad and will never admit the fact that, like, you know, I didn't do everything that I could have done. I could have done that, and I think that's what really makes a lot of people angry when they don't succeed at the stuff that they're trying to do. I mean, I don't find it possible for you to get mad unless... Obviously, if things were really screwed up and you got, you know, shafted out of what is essentially yours, but how can you walk away from a situation unhappy if when thinking about everything you did, you've done everything you could possible, then you're right where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
You did what you could, and now you either step it up from there and do more and walk into the same situation and, you know, better it, or you know, you back off and reevaluate.
Yeah, and for me, I try to find motivation in a lot of different things. For me, this prep, obviously we're personal friends. You guys know, you know, a lot about my life and
by
whatnot.
this prep, are we going through? We're now in the West Virginia prep.
This is the West Virginia prep. Yeah,
Okay.
This most recent show, it was November 10th. So three and a half years ago, you know, as you guys know, obviously the audience doesn't know. You know, my life was just like, it seems like when bad things happen, it's just one after another and it's nonstop.
When it rains, it pours, buddy.
Yeah, it was definitely pouring. So,
Tsunami.
yeah, man, my best friend since third grade, Steven, met at third grade T-ball. We were on the same team. We were on the Rockies. I believe it was the Rockies. He went to Hoban also, so we played football together all through high school and whatnot.
Gotcha.
Grew up
So
in the same
lifelong
neighborhood.
friend.
Lifelong friend. He went to Holy Cross College, which is at Notre Dame. Lifelong Notre Dame fan. He was going to the Notre Dame USC game, crossing the street, gets hit by this guy driving a Jeep. hit and run guy, drives off. He asked the passenger to take the rap. Passenger said no. Dude gets in his car. Takes off. So Steve, the eyewitnesses said, he got hit so hard he did somersaults. His pants right at his ankles.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. Ironically enough, one of the first people on the scene was a nurse at the hospital he ended up going to.
Oh.
So he was actually on life support for a week. So I'm driving back and forth between here and South Bend. My sister lives in Chicago.
I remember.
I'd go stay in Chicago just because it was an hour and a half less than... I did the math. I was in the car for like 18 hours in 4 days or something like that, just driving back and forth.
My back would have been wrecked.
It wasn't a good time. So physically or emotionally.
Yeah, no, but, absolutely not.
At the end of the day or at the end of the week, the doctors pretty much said a miracle. He's going to need 24-hour care in a facility. This is a kid that played basketball, played hockey, went skydiving, and his parents are just like that's not a life he'd want to live. We all agree. No. Everybody knew that. So took him off life support. They said because his heart was so strong, he played hockey for his whole life. So they said, he could honestly stay off life support for, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 hours. They weren't really sure. So, took him off life support was inevitably the decision. I'm sitting there, it's just me in the hospital room. Steven's in his bed. His mom and his uncle are in the room. And, we're just, talking, sitting there. I see him getting ready to go. His mom's like, hey, whenever you need to go, don't feel obligated. You've done so much for us this week. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to relax a little bit, get ready to go. So about 10 minutes go by. I just kind of start getting everything together, getting ready to leave. Nurse comes in. Hey, guys, just so you know, he's getting ready to pass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so literally right as I'm about to leave, that all happened. So, there's 30 people in the lobby, all his closest friends and family. He passed with 30 people in his room that, obviously loved him to death.
Really cared about him.
Yeah, so that was the first crazy thing that happened. Then after that, I had a friend, she had brain cancer for years. Her name was Cindy. She was a group exercise instructor at the gym. She and I, grew really, really close. She kicked cancer's butt for 5 years. They told her she would die in 3 weeks when she was diagnosed. She made it 5 years. So she actually ended up passing away. So that was very difficult. Her funeral was actually the same day my dad had surgery. He had surgery because 2 weeks previous to that, he was diagnosed with cancer. So it started off in his rectum and his lung. So, had a couple of surgeries, concentrated radiation to kill the spot in his lung, continued treatment and whatnot, had his surgery, and then every 3 months he'd do a follow-up scan. So it sucked because he had his surgery. I'm at the Cleveland Clinic. I drive down to Canton, go to her funeral, drive right back up to, be with my dad who just had cancer surgery. So a couple of months goes by and, has a scan, and this time I found out that it had spread to his liver. So, and it was right next to his gallbladder. So they had to go in, have another surgery, remove that part of the liver, and they just took his gallbladder out just to not take any chances or whatnot.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's good. He's kicking butt as always. He's a maniac. All he wanted to do is get back and go to work and just do his thing. So after that, a couple weeks goes by, and then my dog, Roscoe, he's my English bulldog. I got him he was my 16th birthday present. Best friend in the world. This dude was the man. I had him until I was 28 years old. So from 16 to 28, there's a lot of stuff in life that happens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like everything. Everything bad, almost, essentially. And he had my back through all that. I always knew I was going to come home. He was going to be there to, slobber all over me. And
boy, did he slobber.
Farting and burping and you name it, man. Anyone who's had an English bulldog knows exactly what I'm talking about. So best day of...
One of the boys.
Yeah.
Best part of my day was coming home to that. Man, he's just a goofball.
Take
man.
one look at Ryan, any part of Ryan's social media, and there'll be collages and years worth of pictures of.
Well, he got a tattoo.
I did.
Yeah,
He got a tat of the dog.
Yep. My tattoo artist Tara Bauer, she's actually retired back in June. Unfortunately, so I'm in tattoo limbo now. But she
Who will do my work?
So she did the portrait of him for me. Looks just like the picture.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that really sucks. So he actually had a tumor on his heart. So, but he was 12 and a half. The lifespan for a bulldog is typically 8 to 10 years. This dude was 12 and a half. He had a good life. We did a lot of stuff together. So losing him was as hard as losing, anybody. So that sucked. Fast forward a couple months, my dad has another scan, and this time the cancer is now in stage 4 and is in both of his lungs. So now they're like, we can basically, it's about maintaining, making sure essentially it doesn't go to your brain.
It doesn't keep spreading.
Yeah, exactly. So that, they're like, inevitably you could be here for 6 months, you could be here for 6 years, no idea.
It's just how much they can slow the progression.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, like I said, just make sure you have whatever you, what's the word here? Your dignity in a nutshell. So it was just a whirlwind of event after event after event happening. So that all went down. I was in a weird, it was a dark spot for a little while. I'm just like, when's
not
this
much
gonna end?
negativity around. Yeah. I think a lot of people can agree with that when, whether it's losing someone or, just like you said, with your tattoos being in like a limbo in aspects of your life or any type of hardship, people just it's hard to dig yourself out of there, and you think back on it when and if you can pull yourself out of that. It's a haze, it's a bubble in your life where you just just surrounded by misery.
Yeah, and the big thing I think is like being able to look back on it and understand that you were in an abyss. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that I feel like, especially with the mentality of the Instagram and the Facebook and,
Making things look
the
sugarcoating a lot of stuff.
Sugarcoating
Yeah.
and then letting it fly. You know what I mean? And so it's like looking back and being able to admit, like, I was in hell.
Yeah, it was miserable.
For a little while. That was horrible. Yeah, I mean, and not saying like, oh, you know what? No, it was all, like I'm making it. Like I'm surviving. Like when people, it drives me absolutely bonkers when. It really grinds my gears when people are on campus or something like that. Or, I pass people at the hospital and I'll be like, hey, like, how's your day going? Are you okay? Like, do you need something? And it's somebody like blatantly that I'm asking that question for a purpose.
You already know.
Because like as nurses, like your friend that was on life support and everything, there's something to be said. Like I immediately felt a pain in my heart when you said the nurse came and said, hey, just to let you know, you're like, he's getting ready to pass. Like I've been that person to go and tell that family. You know what I mean? And that it's not the same pain that the family is feeling by any means. You know what I mean? But it's like,
it's not
it's
easy
hard
to
to
drop
explain.
that weight on
You know what
people.
I mean? Like, yeah, that's, and so
You're a
when,
human being, I mean.
right. And so like you care about that patient, especially if he was there for a week, we've been taking care of him. We've been trying to keep him alive kind of thing. And like, where it's ending up. Like, and so in a nurse's mind, you're like, you kind of already know where it's headed and that someone's going to have to break that news. And then to be the one to have to walk into parents, and friends and be like, hey, like his breathing is slowing down. Like you might want to come into the room. But you ask that person that just had to do that to a family and they're like, no, I'm good.
You're not good.
It's like,
don't lie to me.
It's okay. Like just acknowledge the fact that, this is a rough spot and like just you can talk to other humans.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah, be vulnerable.
There's
That's
no
a
shame.
huge
There's no
key.
shame in it.
Basically, when you were going through all this, me and you were, I think we were training together for most of that time. So
Because you were getting ready for your show.
yeah, well, I was, and I mean, Ryan's not one to shy away from, hey, this is exactly what's going on, and this is why I'm in a crappy mood.
Well, that might be why you guys get along so well, because I don't think either of you shy away from just like, this is exactly what's on my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used to keep everything in, years ago, and I realized it didn't go anywhere. It just made me hurt more internally.
Yeah.
And, especially, people that understand me, that know where I'm coming from, people I'm close with, obviously, like, you guys, I felt comfortable telling you what I was going through.
Yeah. And we're not going to do anything but try to help.
Because I knew you would understand, whereas, other people, say someone who hasn't been through that kind of stuff.
They don't know.
Yeah, they think they might know, but
I mean, sometimes I've experienced that too, where, like, you already know the person hasn't been through even remotely what you're talking about, and then they try to make you feel better, and then even if you don't want to come off as a jerk, but you get kind of mad. You're like, you don't.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and try to tell me you understand how you feel, how I feel, or you know what I'm going with, because you don't.
Yeah, nobody can understand what anybody is specifically going through. You know what I mean? Unless you, like, physically, I mean, the cliche statement is, walking a mile in somebody's shoes.
Yeah.
But unless
But it's hard not to get angry when someone pretends.
And that's what and they teach
know.
you that when you do like counseling, classes and psychology classes and stuff like that. You can't compare sorrows with another human. It's like trying to say like it's a weird dichotomy because it's almost like you're trying to one up somebody on the level of pain that you've had to suffer in your life.
Yeah,
You're like,
you're right.
I've been through worse things than you.
Oh yeah,
and
you
it's
did
like
this. Well, I did the.
Yeah,
you've activated my trap card.
You're like, oh, your dog died. Oh, my dad died, and it's like, whoa, like why are we
it was a
comparing
contest.
this?
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And so sometimes people can get into that mentality where you're like, it's okay. Like I went through something like this too. And
Is it okay?
And sometimes, and I've learned this just through years of nursing school and being around women 24/7. So I'm treading on thin ice here, but a lot of times, and guys too, they just they want a place somebody to listen, not necessarily offer a response or an assistance. You know what I mean? Sometimes active listening and just being that person that has two ears and one mouth, so you listen twice as much as you talk, is a useful thing to do. And so, like you said, having those people around, especially when you're going through like stuff like that, can be invaluable. But so you had so that was like an abyss right there. Have you dealt with I know that we kind of talked about your younger days, being beat up and picked on and everything like that. Did you pull from any of those experiences when you were learned how to deal with the darkness earlier on in life when you were trying to deal with all of that stuff that hit you like a freight train in your 20s?
I've had my first experience. So growing up, my parents divorced when I was 2. My dad didn't really get to see him very much. There's variable reasons why not. It's a 28-year story. That could be a whole another podcast, so we won't get too far into that. Right. But my grandpa essentially was my only father figure growing up, and he passed away when I was 10. So after that, I was just trying to figure stuff out. He was like the glue of the family, ex-Marine, captain of his football, baseball, basketball teams, extremely successful businessman. He was the man. He's just, the guy. And, to this day, he's, has to be the most important person that's ever been in my life because after that, a lot of what I tried to do, especially sports-wise, was to make him proud, essentially. So losing him sucked. He died of, he actually ended up dying. He was diagnosed with lung cancer. Actually ended up dying of sepsis from the chemo, which was about a month after he was diagnosed. He went to the chiropractor with back pain.
And that's what it was?
Yeah, and the chiropractor did an x-ray, and it was just white. It was in his bones. I mean, it was you need to go to the doctor, right now. So that was my first, that was when life first hit me. Just life. I'm okay, so this is what happens as you get older. I'd say after that, again, like I said, I was a fat kid growing up. I got, beat up every day off the bus by my neighbor who lived in the red house at the end of the cul-de-sac. I would get off the bus. This dude would just beat me up, kick me, and leave me in the same ditch every single day. His name was Jack.
Threw a pillow down there. See you tomorrow.
I should have took a nap while I was down there. But I mean, I was a fat kid. Girls didn't like me. All that stuff. I mean, it was what it was. So obviously, I loved, grew up loving Arnold movies. That's what I grew up watching. So I decided it was time to get in the weight room. So, I'm I need to take my stress out, put it in here. If I, I'm just going to get bigger and stronger than this dude, so he can't beat me up anymore. So I'll beat him up instead. It was kind of the mentality. So, started lifting when I was 10 or 12 or something like that. Getting a little sidetracked. But
so there's a reason why I wanted to go back and hit that. So we're gonna kind of jump back and have you finish the story leading up into the Think Pink. But the reason why I wanted to hit that is because there's people see, you at, so all of this going down with your dad is to 27, 28, 26, 27, 28, kind of later, mid to late 20s, right? So people see somebody in their mid to late 20s with coping mechanisms, right? And they're this person's going to the gym to cope with things. They're, they're eating healthy to cope with things. Weird, like this guy's taking his stress out on a treadmill and, underneath of a flat bench and stuff like that. Whereas other people, their coping mechanisms are booze. Their coping mechanisms are McDonald's. Their coping mechanisms are, drugs. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I wanted to make sure that we went back a little bit to kind of talk about that one little piece where people can see, like, these coping mechanisms were starting to be formed at a very early age.
Yeah.
Like that happens. So as parents out there, you know what I mean? As a young kid, if you're listening to this, because I know that there's some people that are in our listener demographic that are like, 14, 15, 16 years old. They're friends with my brother or anything else like that. Like your coping mechanisms that you use for the rest of your life are kind of started now. Those habits that you form, in early double digits or younger, is like what comes in handy when you're 26 years old and your friend gets killed in a hit and run, and then your other friend dies of brain cancer, and then your dog dies, and everything else. That's what prevents you from hitting that downward spiral. Is those habits, that mentality where you were like, instead of, violently outbursting, I'm going to go to the gym and get stronger so that I can defend myself.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to go shoot up the school. I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah, so that's the mentality.
I'm going to get stronger. Because for me, like, I had this image in my head. It was from the movie Commando. It was the beginning where Arnold's walking with that tree over his shoulder. His bicep just, all you saw was up. I'm like, that's what I...
No one's going to bully that.
No one's going to bully that.
Unless you're just, like, inhuman individual.
It's a Terminator.
Yeah.
Right. So fast forward. So we got your coping mechanisms, and now we're like understand a little bit more of like why you're doing so well dealing with everything. Not to say that emotionally you're not in an abyss, because inevitably you are. I mean, you end up in a dark place when stuff like that happens. Darkness kind of inevitably sets in. But if you have that little bit of a spark that's able to light a candle, you can kind of force yourself to keep moving through it with good friends and surrounded by good people.
Because you had competed before, as we said and whatnot, but then you were actually in my corner all of my prep. I bought you the backstage coach's pass for my show, and I think either roughly like a little bit before my show or right around during my show, you're like, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket and funnel everything down that I've been going through for the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna step back on stage.
Yeah, definitely training with you definitely lit that fire. I mean, there's nothing like the process of getting ready for a show. I mean, it's physically, mentally grueling, but when you get to that point, I mean, you're doing something that 99% of the world just can't do, and everything's up to you. Again,
The 1%.
The 1%. I mean, it's all a mentality, and it took me years to take all those negatives and like everyone's like, oh, everything happens for a reason. There's a positive to everything. Yeah. And I'm sitting here waiting for it. It's not coming. Bad thing after bad thing's happening. I'm like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
And then, something just a switch flipped, and I finally found a way to make all those negatives into a positive. So the Think Pink show was important to me because, again, it's called obviously Think Pink, breast cancer.
Yeah.
The promoter, his name's Andy Bartolovich. He runs the show. It's MPC, obviously, like we said before. His mother, I believe, passed away of breast cancer. A couple years. I don't know how many years ago exactly.
Not fairly recent. In the last 5.
So they renamed it the Think Pink because they then donate a percentage of proceeds to the local cancer hospital.
Cancer research, yeah.
And, as we mentioned, my dad's, diagnosed with cancer 3 times.
And you dealt with a lot of cancer from just... Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about your grandpa before this. Obviously, I knew about your dad. Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
Really, really bad thing.
Yeah.
So, again, I realized, that show... It had to be that show specifically because of, the cancer research and the proceeds going into it. And, I saw what my dad was going through on a daily basis, every other week, going to chemo, feeling like complete crap all week. He said you start feeling better on Saturday and then, feel good for the rest of that week most of the time, but he would have like a headache all week.
Yeah.
But he never once, made an excuse, whether it was after his surgery where, they only let you go home if you get up and walk around so many times. He would make himself get up, do a lap.
Yep, next you got to pee, poop, and walk. That's our criteria for being able to get off the floor.
Yeah, and he was determined, man. He he would do 1 lap. Next time he would do 2 laps. Next time he'd do 3 laps. I would sit there. I'd walk with him, just kind of keep motivating him. Not that even he needed it, but he would go to he'd go to chemo and he'd go straight to work. He didn't miss a day of work unless he had to drive to the Cleveland Clinic, which is about 2 hours for him, in which he'd be there all day anyway. Only time he would miss work was that. But, I mean, he didn't let that cancer stop him from living his life, and he's still not letting it stop him from living his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he wakes up, goes to work, nonstop. Dude's a maniac. That's what he loves. He loves to just go, 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 and that's what kind of kept him going. So, I see him, what he's going through, and I'm thinking, I'm doing a show, and, yeah, it sucks, and you're hungry, and you're tired. But at the end of the day, you're choosing to do all that.
Yeah.
It's all your choice. You're choosing to suffer. You're choosing to, be hungry, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas I look at him, he didn't have a choice. He's literally fighting for his life every single day, and he doesn't make an excuse. He just goes to work, lives his life, goes on vacations whenever he's able to go on vacation, spends time with his dogs and his husband and everything. I mean, and his husband, that's a whole... his name is Roger. He is a godsend, man. He's actually a registered nurse also. He's not practicing, but he's always stayed up, stayed registered with
Kept his license and everything. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But they own a bunch of restaurants together. And I mean, he's just, keeps me updated, pushes in, makes sure he's drinking his green shakes every morning with, his apricot seeds. And,
nutrition is a huge piece of what that goes. That's like a big reason why people end up getting hospitalized when they're on chemo, because you don't have an appetite necessarily. And then if you let your body get malnourished on top of what everything else is going on, it's bad juju.
Bad recipe.
Yeah, it's a bad combo.
Yeah, so, I mean, like you talked about, the 3-4 a.m. alarm cardio sessions. I mean, waking up tired is like, this is nothing compared to what he's going through. Like, I'm choosing to do this. Like, it's, there was no question that I had to get up. I had to do the cardio. I had to work harder. Everything I did, I looked at him as my motivation. He was the reason I did every second of cardio, every single rep, every, ounce of tilapia that you don't want to eat, you eat it. But, at the end of the day, it had to be that show. It had to be for him. And, if I didn't have, there was times I wanted to quit. Absolutely. You always have those thoughts when you're feeling terrible. But I would just talk to myself out loud, be like, think about your dad, think about what he's going through, think about why you're doing your why factor.
Yep, the why.
That's it, the why factor. There's nothing else matters except your why. He was my why. And, I wanted him to see me on stage doing something I love for the first time in, a couple years. And, I worked as hard as I could. I knew I left no stone unturned, by the time I got on that stage. And, he always, even weekly, we talk. He's like, I'm really proud of what you did. And, it's so awesome to see how well you did and how hard you worked, because I know how hard you worked. And being able to tell him what I just told you guys, how everything I did was for him. I got to tell him that the next morning after the show. I mean, I was waiting. Everything was leading up to that moment for me to tell him I wouldn't be here. So that's what that's what it comes down to.
And I mean, we already went over your accolades, but you did excellent. I mean, at your show for what? It was your last show before this one was like what, 5 years or something like
7.
that? Yeah, even longer.
A little hiatus, but
I mean, you did great, and regardless of results or whatever, that's what you're gonna that's what you walked away from it with. Like, that's something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. That's something your dad will remember for the rest of his life. That, all that time and work was, motivated and fueled by everything that, he was going through, everything that you went through. Yeah,
that why factor. And that's something that, like, are you going to finish?
No, you're fine.
So there's, like, that why factor. So the entire time you were talking about, like, understanding that why and, like, that alarm clock going off and it sucking and you, like, knowing what that's about. In the first episode of the Apex, me and Lieutenant Colonel Brown talked about, like, first world problems. You know what I mean? And how ridiculous they are. Where it's like, people get upset because they're cussing out their 50-inch TV because their Netflix isn't working, and now they can't binge watch Shameless. I don't know if that's still on Netflix.
The Punisher.
But yeah, The Punisher. I
Season
love that
2
show.
Friday.
So
shameless plug.
So there's like that's people legitimately think of that, and I'm like, people in the 40s, were like signing up at like 15 to go storm the beaches of Normandy. And that's like my motivation, because my grandfather was a former Marine as well. And so he served in Korea, and I had
Korean War.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. They actually died of very similar diagnoses too, which is weird. My grandfather died of systemic leukemia and sepsis. So,
wow.
Yeah, like when you started talking about that, I was like, here we go. I was like, control the waterworks, Jan. But so I have his dog tags tattooed on my chest. He was a huge father figure for me growing up. I've got a picture. I'll show you after this.
I have his dog tags tattooed with his portrait on my leg.
That's awesome.
Carrying it around.
And his sharpshooter pin too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I have a picture of him when I was 6 years old. He taught me how to fold the flag like that. And like ever since then, I knew that I wanted to wear a uniform. So like I wake up in the morning, and everything that I do, like I read that text from Emily, when it comes to work, when it comes to doing this, when it comes to bettering myself day in and day out, to try to be the best nurse that I can be, to try to be like learn as much as I can, because my end goal is I want to be able to do combat medical evacuation, right? And so with that being in my mind, it's like all of these people that have fought, bled, and died in these uniforms to save people, like if I can save one of them, like that's what I want to be able to do. That's my why. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm sure like RJ has his why and his reason behind what he's doing. But those accolades, the trophies, because those are those trophies are almost as tall as you are,
Well, I'm not the tallest guy.
Yeah. So but like those trophies, as big as they are and as good as it feels to win that accolade right off the bat, I remember when I made staff sergeant, I was happy for like 48 hours. And then I was like, okay, cool. Now what? You know what I mean? Like those physical representations of what you accomplished are very fleeting, and the joy behind those leave really quickly. But like RJ pointed out, like that interaction with your dad, the why behind what you did to get on that stage and do so well at that show, and everything else, like those are stories that you're going to be able to share with your grandkids, your dog, children later on down the line as motivation and stuff like that. Where those are stories that are going to get passed down for, between friends, family, and loved ones forever.
I do talk to my dog too.
But
he knows.
He doesn't say much. He's a good listener.
And that's like, sometimes that's all people need, right? We talked about that.
Yeah. Those
Sometimes
big old
people
ears,
need a good listener. But those stories, like
what it boils down to is those end up being more important than any trophy that you can walk away with.
And that's what we're trying to capture here. Like it makes me so happy to know that like we're getting this recorded. You know what I mean? Because it's stories like this that people need to hear, and that make me so happy to have started what we started here, because there's so many people out there that are ordinary humans that have gone through these things that people have gone through to get to where they are. And it's like we're all connected and we all go through similar things and everything else. But the way that people take it, if it can help one other person figure out how to get through that abyss, like someone's stuck right now, thinking, it's been 3 years. Everybody keeps dying. Like I lost a job, or, I got kicked out of school or something else. Like when is my break going to happen? When is my switch going to flip? And if they can hear this and understand that, sometimes that why is self-created, and your self-accountability and all these lessons that you just offered, and it can change the way that they're thinking about the situation that they're in, then, we did our job.
Absolutely.
Which is absolutely phenomenal. So with I'm curious now with you, like, why did you, and I'm like looking at RJ right now, just so everybody knows, but like, why are you so passionate about what you're doing? What is kind of your why, I guess?
Like bodybuilding specifically?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, like my why for the military is my grandfather. I guess we're both kind of mutually, like our starting point was kind of our granddads being like big influences.
I mean, it's not going to sound as great as your guys because you have like people and like stories and stuff backing it. But like what I told you when I had my interview on here before I started co-hosting, it was more or less like I was in a bad place. Like, and I'd wrestled for so long, and didn't have like super high aspirations for myself to like go to the Olympics and whatnot. But I didn't like not having anything to like dump my time and energy into, and like I knew I had the ability to be some type of athlete. Okay, great, maybe not a wrestler, maybe not a football player or anything like that, but I wasn't just going to sit there and like let my potential go to waste. So, when I started working out and, I saw progress and that I had the ability to, put on the weight that I needed to, and I already knew that I had the, mental capacity to be able to diet myself down to, ungodly body weights. I was like, yeah, like it dragged me out of a place of being like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go. The things I want to accomplish, and it gave me structure. And then like now, after competing for so many years, it gives me a place to if I'm upset about anything going on in my life, the first place I want to do is go to the gym. It allows me to sit there and think things through without ripping my own hair out. It gives me a place. It gave me Ryan as a friend. It's the gym and bodybuilding and the lifestyle with it that has given me more than just an outlet for things. It's given me friends. It's given me career opportunities. It's given me support in ways that I wasn't getting in other aspects of my life. And overall, it just I'm motivated by bettering myself, and then now that I'm at a certain part, including the podcast, bettering other people's lives, whether it's through fitness or, like you said, being able to help someone out who can just hear us from week to week.
Right.
So I've always been motivated by helping others.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good place to have motivation come from, is by wanting to share your story and help other people. So at the end of shows, right, we like to give the guests the floor. Right. And so, I mean, I would kind of ask that you start, like the Think Pink and, what it kind of felt like after that. And then the floor is open to just whatever lessons, final closing words. If we haven't hit it throughout the podcast, or you want to reiterate a concept that is really near and dear to your heart, I mean, you can just let it fly. Ramble if you feel like rambling on, but give our listeners your...
For example, because I like doing this at the end of the show for myself, after listening and sitting here and knowing you personally, and we've known each other for almost 7 years now?
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, because you were working at Powerhouse when I first started working out there, 180 pounds or whatever I was at the time. And just after, having it all laid out in an hour segment here, and then hearing about it while it's unraveling, because we're training together, seeing each other on a daily basis. Like from your situation, the message that I take most from it, because I've been in the same place and haven't been so constructive with the negative that's been happening to me, but that out of anything negative that's happening to you, there is always a way, as long as you can tailor it to fit yourself in the direction that you want to go, to take all that negativity, boil it down, harness it into something maybe not as big, but something positive that keeps you moving forward, that keeps you from dwelling on, the bad stuff that's happening to you, but will eventually help propel you forward into a better place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely nailed it a lot. I mean, there's always going to be bad stuff that's happening, but you need to try to be as productive with that as possible, or else, you're going to be in that dark place, but it's going to get darker, and it's going to get darker. Worse. Yeah. And then you might have some thoughts come into your mind that you never thought about before. You might think about doing something really stupid. No. Just because you don't know how to channel that negativity or that, that energy. I mean, whether it's, if you need to see a therapist, see a therapist. There's nothing wrong with talking to somebody. Like we said, I mean, I talked to all you guys about what was going on, and it made me feel better. It's like all the mental health issues that are going on around, nowadays. Yeah, there's mental health, but then there's, I guess depression could be mental health at the same time, just, general sadness. But don't be afraid to, to talk to people about it, but also look for a way you can use it constructively and positively. There's always one way or another, whether it's, like I said, I did it for my dad. If there's someone that you want to do it for, whether it's, it could be your dog, it could be your son, it could be your grandma, It'd be your grandfather who already passed away. As far as, like I was talking about wanting to make my grandpa proud. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with this, which is, I guess that's why the rambling's allowed at the same time.
Just let it rock, man.
Yeah, I mean, the why factor, the self-accountability. Nowadays, nobody wants to work hard. People want everything handed to them. I know it's just, not everybody, obviously, but, you see the mentality a lot where, people want to come to the gym. They just want to mess around on their phone and socialize, which, that's what you want to do. Cool. But I mean, at least try to do some form of, something productive there. Whereas, there's people like us who, we love it. That's our lifestyle.
Love it and live it.
Love it and live it. And, just have self-accountability. Look yourself in the mirror at the end of every day, knowing you did everything in your power to become a better human being that day, better relative, brother, sister,
husband,
coworker, dog dad.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, just find your why factor, focus on that. Anytime something negative is happening, keep
Use
that
it.
why. Use that. Focus on that. That should be your main focus. Don't let it deter you. You're on a straight path. Don't take a detour, because the quickest way from A to B is a straight line. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get to B, that your end goal, don't let anything distract you. Stay focused and just keep pushing yourself no matter what obstacles you're going through. There's people, don't be afraid to ask for help. Mm-hmm. There's people that can help you in any, so many different ways. And, the world is genuinely good people, I feel. A lot of bad people out there. That's true. There's a lot of evil in the world, but there's a lot of good in the world. And
if you do good, you're only helping the cause.
It's karma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just karma. You get back what you put in, and just don't doubt yourself. Just tell yourself you can do it. Believe in yourself. Believe in your why factor, and nothing's going to stop you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's the whole goodness thing in the world is, something that we're trying to show people is more out there. There's a gentleman that we just interviewed named John Dietz, that when I first met him, he said, I don't know, if I'm on the right path, but all I really know is that I'm all alone. And he felt, he's 50, late 40s, early 50s, and he's lived his entire life with I'm one of the few men that I know that thinks the way that I do. That is raised his family, undoubtedly being loyal to his wife and loving his daughters and, working ungodly amounts of hours at the gas company to pay for them to have a good lifestyle and giving everything that he has to his family and stuff. And he's there's not a whole lot of people I feel that have that mentality anymore. And I'm like, John, I was there's a lot more people out there
than you think.
And he met me at Samantha's and then came in for an interview, met RJ. And I feel if he met you, he'd think the exact same thing, where he's there are young men out there that have that same mentality. That, and there's a bunch of young women out there that, not everybody is just, looking around for the next right swipe on Tinder kind of thing. That, there's genuinely those good-hearted people that want the best for their fellow man kind of thing. And that's what, our huge mission is here at the Apex is, getting people to understand that if everybody would just reach out a hand and they help their brother and their sister to the next level, the world would be a way easier place to live in.
Absolutely.
I mean, loyalty is huge in that too. I mean, just if someone's there for you, recognize that, be there for them, be loyal to them. I mean, I myself, and I know plenty of other people that, you think you're, obviously, growing up, you're supposed to have a tight-knit family and whatnot. Sometimes family is going to do what's best for that individual at the end of the day, whether it affects you negatively or not.
Yeah.
I think about you. I consider you family.
Yeah.
I got plenty of other friends I consider family. Mm-hmm. And, another quote that I love is, blood makes you related, but at the end of the day, loyalty is going to make you family.
Absolutely.
So, I have family members that have done,
less than some friends
less
have.
than.
You sound like Dom from Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
I hope not. Ride or die, remember? But
Loyalty, La Familia.
If you have good people in your life, be appreciative of that. Let them know, hey, I appreciate you. I love you being in my life, and I appreciate what you do for me. If there's anything that you can do for them, or just tell them whatever you need, let me know, and I will do everything in my power to help you, help better your life and better your situation.
Yeah, I think it's like this is. I mean, we're gonna start getting off track. We're gonna have to wrap up here, but I think it's super weird that dudes have like this weird affinity to like you can't tell another dude that you love them.
I love you, RJ.
Love you too, brother.
Love you, man.
Yeah, I love you, buddy. But it's like I'll text like my buddy Mike down in Tennessee that I don't get to see that often. I'm like, hey man, like I hope you're having a good day. Love you. You know what I mean? Like just to remind people, because I think that like we forget just what that little bit, of, like you said, being vulnerable to people. Because when you admit to somebody that you're like, hey, I love you and I care about you, not in like a creepy, I'm going to show up at your house, like I'm in love with you, because there's a difference, right? But there's
brotherly love,
right? There's a bunch of different types of love, and you could admit where it's like, hey, I'd take a bullet for you, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And like that loyalty makes a huge difference, and verbalizing it, because regardless of how much people think that you can pick up on, like you don't always pick up on it, and until somebody blatantly comes up and says, hey, either A, quit doing what you're doing because it's bad, or B, like, I love what you're doing and I love you for it. And sometimes that reassurance is, everything that anybody needs.
Man, we hit on there's a lot of good messages in this podcast. I mean, we didn't elaborate. I don't have the time to elaborate on a lot of them, but I mean, long story short, like, just be a good person. If you have something that drives you, use it, good or bad. And on top of that, nothing's going to change unless you hold yourself accountable for it. Amen. And that even comes down to, if you are in a bad place, be accountable. Don't make yourself accountable to the point where you're not afraid, to talk to someone about it. So for everybody that's listening and whatnot, just hopefully any of the massive amount of good topics that we touched on today, you can walk away from here and, better yourself or better someone else's situation. Use it. This is very good teaching moments. But sadly enough, this is the end of another Apex episode. Just want to say thank you, Ryan, for coming out here. Before we wrap anything out, is there anything that you would like to tell the listeners or, plug?
I mean, if you have any interest in my social media, feel free. My Instagram's r_Coblentz330. That's r_COBLENTZ.
A lot of cute pictures of puppies.
Lots of cute pictures.
Yeah, actually, it's 100% worth it.
I would highly recommend following it. We're going to tag it.
We'll have all these linked for you guys, too, if you guys can get these down.
Whenever I'm having a bad day, I know I can go to Ryan's Instagram and feel better because there's cute pictures of dogs.
It's food, the gym, tattoos, beards, and puppies. I mean,
it's simple, to the point.
I mean, I'm
all
a
the good
man.
stuff. Cool.
That could be like your own Pinterest page.
Yeah,
good.
We're going to set you a Pinterest page. But hey, thank you again. It was great talking to you. Hopefully your story and everything that you've gone through can help some people. I know just us being friends, you've helped me through a lot. You were there for me, when I was doing my show, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff, as in just being a heck of a friend. And I know Jan is appreciative that I introduced you guys to one another, and finally we got this flushed out, had a nice breakfast. You guys had a good lift, and if the time is right, hopefully have you back in here sometime soon. But if not, I'll see you Monday through Friday at the gym.
Saturday too. Also, everyone, be nice to animals. Just be nice to animals.
That's actually
that's fair.
100%. But with the end of this, I just want to say, if you guys listen to this show and you enjoyed it, please help us out. Once again, our Patreon is will be linked through this episode and through our website. Any little bit helps, guys. We're trying to bring you, good people with good messages and good high quality content. And from what we've been seeing, you guys like the stuff that we're putting out, and any little bit would help. We're greatly appreciative for those who are on our Patreon already. It just helps us bring you guys better content, and overall brings better.
It's all right, buddy. It's okay.
I have a brain fart.
It brings better people, or it allows us to bring better people onto the shows. But it's super easy to do it. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/the Apex Podcast. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there will be a little button. It's like bright orange. You just click on it, and it says Become a Patron. We get 90% of the proceeds that are donated through that site. So if you go up there, click on Become a Patron, I have it set up to where you can donate like $1, you can donate $3, $5 a month. It's a recurring thing, and then we're going to be building a bunch of cool features into that coming up here in the future. So I would make sure that you hop on that donation bandwagon now as we start to release more and more content because, outside of just the podcast, we're working on a bunch of stuff behind the scenes to make sure that we're bringing high-quality content and consistently trying to push ourselves as much as we're telling you to push each other. So with that, we hope to hear or see you again here. See you, hear you? No. Have you listen?
Have you listen?
We're
going
to have you listen to us in 2 weeks. Obviously, we're getting to the end of our hour here because me and RJ are both starting to slur our words.
Do you honestly want to know what happened when I had my brain fart? So I was looking to the right. I have a Charlie horse that is going up the right-hand side into my right-hand jaw, and it feels like it's pulling on my eyeball. I don't know what that is, but
I saw you
my neck was stuck, and I was like, I can't get a word out right now. That feels terrible. Yeah.
I was so confused because
I've never had a problem finishing before, so I was like, what's happening? I was like, I think I'm having a stroke.
I made eye contact, and you were like,
I was like,
you looked scared.
I'm hurting, like I was locked there.
Oh man. All right, guys. With that, we'll see you 2 weeks from now. We hope you have a great week. Make sure that you stay motivated. Remember your why factor and kick some ass. Have a great week.